When you go into the British Museum, you can walk round and you can see such marvels as the Elgin marbles and the mummies. Very interesting feature there. Fascinating, actually. So yeah, so the museum is an interesting place to visit. You can go to the National Gallery in London, look at some fine arts, famous artistic pieces, as it were. Yeah, for your enjoyment. So go and see firsthand what things are. Okay, obviously, not just in London, you can go to the Louvre in Paris, and other places, even local to us. We've got a couple of good art galleries here, or museums with art galleries attached to them. I've been to a couple. Um, yeah, and also obviously in London and other places, including Manchester and Liverpool, you can go and see their science museums and natural history museums. I mean, yeah, young kids love natural history museums to go and meet the dinosaurs, as it were, if nothing else. Okay, they've got their displays and everything else. Puts a local or puts a better ideas into their heads, gives them a, if you like, a relevance to everything. Certainly, when I took my daughter when she was a bit younger to the Museum of Nordesti in Recife, just to give an example. At first, she didn't want to go. She's a bit reluctant, but yeah, we want to please Daddy. When I took her in there, yeah, she wandered around by herself, read everything. She'd studied the things at school to be able to see, yeah, things from the Brazil's colonial slavery past, actually see the shackles that were put on the slaves, real ones, you know. It somehow brought a relevance of it all to her. Yeah, if you like, there's some you could actually go and touch and feel. Yeah, so she appreciated that and talked about it afterwards. So from someone that didn't want to go and see it, yeah, she suddenly wanted to. She was full of it, full of yeah, the experience there. We've got pictures of it as well, which prove it as well. And yeah, like that. That's a sort of local museum, bit for the state or the district of the Northeast. But we have local museums in England and other places, which are a good experience to visit. If you move to an area, I'd say the first thing you should do is seek out the local museum to get a better understanding of its social history and natural history as well, and lots of other facts about it. Yeah, can help you, if you like, assimilate into the area. And then we can move on to other places. A visit to the British Library in London, where notable things you can see there, apart from all the books they've got there, one of the biggest collections of books in the world, as it were, certainly in Europe. You can go and see an artifact called the Codex Sinaitus, which is a 1600-year-old book, quite literally. Obviously, you can't touch it. It's behind a glass screen or glass in a glass case. It's an incredible thing to look at. When I was in there, I went back, kept looking at it. Probably one of the most contemporary books, if you like, if you have a Christian faith, to the foundations of our faith, as it were. It's written in Greek. It's one of the oldest, most complete New Testaments, and again the Old Testament as well, which okay is a little bit different. And another exhibition it got in there is of the Magna Carta, the Great Charter, which in most or a lot of legal systems around the world are based upon. So yeah, and then yeah, moving on. Okay, let's talk about the British Library, other libraries as well. Go to your local library. A lot of them have good collection of books, obviously, good place to study, etc. My question to you, Steve, is: are physical places still relevant in our online world? Do they still have an importance? Open question to you now.
Yep, I think going to museums and going to Displays are always important. It's a little bit like if you want to buy something off the internet, the first thing you should do is go to a shop and look at the thing that you want to buy.
Mm,
It's the same that what you're looking at in the internet, so you know what it looks like and feels like.
mm,
Instead of just going back to your eBay or your Mercado Livre, which is
mm.
the equivalent we have here in
Yeah.
Brazil, um, to help you decide if you want to buy that product or not. The museums, they give you a chance to see things in real life, I
Mm,
suppose, in 3 dimensions instead of a two-dimensional screen,
mm,
which you'd only get a two-dimensional screen on the internet.
mm. Yeah.
It's a little bit like I don't know, watching somebody on the telly. You've got a celebrity on the telly, and we're used to seeing them on the telly, but when you see them in real life, they look totally different.
Yeah.
You know, there's that extra, and I'd use the word dimension,
Mm,
but it's something that they look a little bit different than what they are uh, produced on the telly, and it's giving you that extra, an extra oomph, I suppose.
yeah.
You feel closer or more distant than that to that celebrity, because you never know. You might see that celebrity live and you don't like them, you know. And I'm not saying they're acting or anything like that. I mean, just their
Mm, yeah.
personality. You get to
Yeah.
see that extra thing about them, their personality. You
Yes.
know. I mean, I don't know if you remember Julie Goodyear. Julie
Oh, yeah.
Goodyear, she played Bet Lynch
Mm,
on Coronation Street.
yeah.
And when I was a kid, I had the chance to see Julie Goodyear at a great exposition
Mm,
in Manchester when we lived near to Manchester when I was a kid, uh, part of when I was a kid, and we went to this big exhibition, and Julie Goodyear was there. And one of the first things that I noticed about Julie Goodyear was
mm.
that she had a mustache. She had a blonde,
Yeah.
yeah, she had and I remember my mother, she used to get her tweezers, and
Mm,
my mother used to pull her
mm.
facial hair out. Women do this, but
Yeah.
these days it's waxed, and they.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
But Julie Goodyear, she was quite bushy, so much so that I noticed it, and which I
Mm,
didn't notice on the telly, you know.
mm.
And it's. I think you can never beat one-on-one.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like people's personalities on the internet.
Mm,
People will argue more freely on the internet, but
yeah.
personally, that are different on the internet. They look, they're probably a wolf in sheep's clothing,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
or, or rather, or vice versa, a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You
So,
know,
yeah.
you
Yeah. I
have
mean,
you have to be there. You have to be there. You have to be able to not necessarily touch it. I mean, I've mentioned this to you before.
yeah.
Going to the Louvre in Paris,
Mm,
and probably the most used phrase or the most used sentence in the Louvre in Paris is that it then? When
yeah.
people draw the Mona Lisa, because we all on the internet, you think it's a
Mm,
massive painting. It isn't.
mm.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a postage stamp. So you have to see it for what it is live
Yeah.
to appreciate it. You'll never appreciate how big a dinosaur is
Yeah.
until you stood underneath one or next to one.
Yeah. The
You
famous
know,
Brontosaurus Bronte in the
in
Natural
London.
History Museum. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
In Doncaster Museum, they
Yeah.
had a stuffed lion,
Yeah.
and it's only when you see the size of the thing that you realize that lions are quite big.
Yeah.
Adult lions are quite big. You
Mm,
know, So you have it. So only looking at it live, or or yeah, live. Looking at it live, that you can appreciate the size, dimension, the
mm,
personality, the richness, the expression.
yeah,
You can't do that in any other way.
yeah. I mean, yeah, because I was thinking about this. I mean, with museums, and you're quite right. Yes, you go to the Natural History Museum in London where I took my daughter. And one of the fascinating things to me was it was, yeah, not long after Nemo came out, Finding Nemo, the card, yeah. And she saw a model of the stingray. Oh, she should up 6 or 7, must have been. And she saw this model, and there's a character in the film called Mr. Ray, who's the
Mhm.
school teacher. And she saw this, and she was given the dialogue of the song or something of the character in the film. So, I mean, yeah, I thought that was quite incredible. So she'd linked in both. Okay, she'd recognised it, linked it in, and we're wandering around, and she's looking at things, and she's really enjoying it. I mean, she went back there this year. Now she's yeah, late teens, a woman now. A different experience for her. She still speaks about it or spoke about it and remembers things from her childhood. This is it because she remembers going and visiting Castle with me, another place, how much she did used to enjoy it. Yeah. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm thinking this. Yeah, the younger people today, like she does, she has an online world, always has had. Okay, but we didn't do. I wouldn't say I did bad parenting because yeah, I took her to museums to enjoy. It's like in Recife, we've got a nuclear energy museum attached to the university. Not many locals know about it. I've told some of my clients about it. Wow. I told their children they wanted to go and see it. I said, well, you've got to ask your parents about that. It's free to go in there. And yeah, I mean, and they learn about this subject at school. And even before they learn about it, you take them there, they've got a reference and they can actually see the things from the things for real, Geiger counters and things like this. I don't know about you, but I don't happen to have a Geiger counter laying about my house. I could demonstrate. Nearly bought one some years ago, a second-hand one I saw in a shop.
I'm sure there'll be an app one day. Don't worry about.
I think if we start carrying Geiger counters on our mobile phones, I think the world's in a pretty bad state at that point. But yeah,
Well, we're
yeah,
almost there.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, you take to museums. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's some interesting yes, it's a real world experience, and that's what I'm getting at. And you're saying about meeting celebrities. What sticks out in your mind, particularly as a youngster? Yeah, I mean, going to a zoo, maybe. Okay, zoos are controversial places now for understandable reasons. Even museums, we're talking about stuff. The Natural History Museum in London, make no bones about it. They're not replenishing. They do say some of our stuffed animals may look a bit old and tatty and everything else, but we're not replacing them anymore. Yeah, for understandable reasons. It's not right for a lot of reasons. Well, if you're going to take a dead animal, maybe, but yeah, not to kill one to put on display. Um, I mean, these places are places of learning, education, but it should be enjoyable as well. Um, I think, yes, I know museums have got to be creative now to draw people in. The Natural History Museum in London has the animatronic T-Rex that, it's Jurassic Park for real. As you say, watching the film Jurassic Park in 3D. Very cleverly done. Yeah. I mean, it hasn't quite got the movements. This brings me on to another thing. Yeah, with museums, some museums have virtual experiences now online. You can go online and you can go and visit the things. You can almost walk around the museum. I've tried it. I've had a go, and it is not the same.
Of
Yeah,
course not.
it is just not the same. I don't know anyone's selling it, and just imagine 3D with goggles. Oh, great. Yeah, it's like I said, being able to go and see the Codex Sinaitus or the Magna Carta for real. Okay, not everyone can experience that. I was fortunate to live in London or be in London and could do that. Um, yeah, yeah, I know. Controversially, go and see things from Egypt and Greece in a museum in the middle of London. I know the controversy against it, but probably more people have an understanding and an appreciation of the culture because of that. The experience I had in the museum, seeing it as a youngster, seeing these sculptures, seeing the mummies in the British Museum, led them to a bit deeper interest to become the scientists, if you like, and the art people and things later.
Oh, sure.
Um,
There's always something that will
yeah,
trigger the young mind.
yeah,
Uh, there needs to be a series of coincidences to come together
yeah,
to make somebody go into a specific field. When I was a youngster,
yeah,
I used to be heavily into astronomy,
yes,
and I, you know, however, the family moved to another school, and
yeah,
therefore my interest was interrupted, and of course
yeah,
I went on to different things.
yeah.
If I
Well,
would have stayed at the same school, whoever knows, I might be, rubbing shoulders with Patrick Moore. You
well,
know,
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I
you
mean,
just don't know these things. All these things have got to align and come together
yeah,
to keep for somebody to keep. You've got to have a really stable life, I suppose, and
yeah,
something always to aliment to
mm,
feed the interest that you have.
yeah.
Because
I mean,
as soon as you lose the food and you lose the interest, then you wander off and do other things.
yeah, I mean, I would say lived near London or that, went to the Greenwich, the Austral Observatory at the top of the hill in Greenwich, saw the Meridian line and yeah, the telescope. Visited when it was actually there, Hurstman Zoo, which was where the museum moved to, or the Astronomical Society moved to. Um, and yeah, my parents took me to these places. We had school trips to museums, but I'd already visited my parents as well because they took me there as well. Looking at yeah, maritime history, even the National Maritime Museum in London, where I always remember they had the Nelson exhibition because obviously we grew up learning about Nelson. He's yeah, okay, Wellington, but yeah, Nelson. Yeah, to see his blood-stained. I always remember as a kid, I kept talking about it, the blood-stained shirt he had, and he also had his ponytail cut off. They called it there. Yeah, and going to the Tower of London and other places, Colchester Castle, seeing things when you're younger. Yeah,
You mentioned Nelson.
mm,
I think people to understand more about what these old folk, these old heroes
yeah,
went through. You need to try and replicate it for yourself.
mm,
And a few years ago, I went on a boat to go deep sea diving.
mm,
It wasn't all that deep. It was only about 30
yeah,
meters, but even so, it was below the waterline. And I didn't
mm,
use a snorkel. I used the oxygen. I used the
yeah,
oxygen tank. Thanks. But it's only when you're in a small boat
mm,
even though we were close water, we weren't
yeah,
really on the high sea. But when you go out from the beach and you don't see the beach anymore,
mm,
and you just see the water, and the water becomes really aggressive.
mm,
It's really, really powerful.
yeah,
And it's only then that you appreciate how brutal the sea can be,
yeah,
and how these people that crossed, those that explorers that cross seas, they must have gone through that. The poor guy who goes up the top in the crow's nest,
yeah,
and I've been on a ship in harbour,
yeah, yeah,
a sailing ship in harbour, and
yeah,
gone up to the crow's nest.
mm,
And even in harbour, the boat it's going to rock a little tiny
yeah,
bit, but at the top of the crow's nest, it's like this,
yeah,
and you're swaying from side to side, and
yeah,
I was really, really scared.
Yeah,
Imagine that on a high sea, having to shin up, having to shin up to the crow's nest, and the boat's balancing like this, and
yeah,
the crow's nest was going to be woo, woo.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, well, oh yeah, this is real world. I mean, yes, it's how can you replicate that? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can go on the ship. I mean, another museum in London, funny enough, is the Cutty Sark. Okay, it's not got the
Well,
crow's nest and all that, but you walk in on a ship. HMS Victory in Plymouth. Plymouth, yeah. Plymouth. Yeah, well, you can go on there. I've never been to it, and to my regret, I didn't get down that far when I was in the UK, but it's so, I didn't work there or anything else. But yeah, um, it's a great experience for youngsters, for young people and older people. Um, yeah, I mean, when you talk to people, when you read it, I mean, read Master and Commander, Far Side of the World, the film, but there's a series of books on about it as well, which probably the closest you can read to experience, brings back to libraries, um, that you can have. And to actually walk on a ship and see what these guys, like you say, went through. A lot more willingly doing it as well. Um, I know we know about the press gangs and things like that, but a lot of people went into the Navy as a career as well. Um, yes, you visit these museums and they do try and replicate or give you an example that you will not get off, as you say, a two D image or even a 3D image with goggles. You walk around something, you feel it, feel the ghosts almost if you actually go onto the real thing. Yeah, I know you don't believe in ghosts, but yeah, maybe some people do have experiences. I don't know. Um, it is I think it's a very, very important thing. Personally, I know there are people advocating for the closure of museums for lots of different reasons and zoos and other
well,
places.
most
Yeah,
financial, mostly financial, and I think it's sad.
yeah, yeah. I think it's irritatingly sad, and when I hear it, and yeah, I'm just going to move on to libraries. People saying that libraries should close. What's the relevance now? My local authority, well, where I lived come from in the UK, yeah, okay, Southend Library. They went into a collaboration with the university that was there now and other places, in the education. And they've got an incredible library. You can't take every book out now because a lot of them belong to the university, but you can use them as reference if you're studying. Although I don't think I particularly want to take a book out about engineering calculus anyway. I can't think of any reason I'll take that home and read it. But certainly for other books, and that's I'm bringing on about physical reading as well. I know there's a lot available online and everything. The fact that Kindle has effectively failed now, which was going to be the online renaissance of books, um, the library is still very popular with young people going in there. It's a social place now. They encourage it to be. Like even my wife, Brazilian wife, complained to the attendant the kids were making a noise. I didn't bother. And they said, well, no, we encourage that because it gets them to go in there. And they've got sections for younger people to go and enjoy books. Literally, you see youngsters there sitting down reading. Or it could take, they can take the books out as well sometimes, which I think is a great joint experience. You see youngsters still sitting around together reading and working. And you see this in some museums now. Some museums have tables that encourage people to sit down and look at things and study, which I think is great. It's a great interactive experience. Most people think interactive only means online now.
Yeah,
Interactive has always existed. Yeah.
yeah. In the case of libraries, basically, well, I mean, there are two types of books, aren't there?
Mm.
It's fiction and non-fiction.
Yeah.
The non-fiction and the fiction, I, I've I could justify a library.
Yeah.
The non-fiction these days basically are facts and figures that people are looking for, you know, and that they can find online. It's not because it's those people that like to turn the page,
Yeah.
lick the finger and turn the page.
Mm.
Those type of people, they like the fiction.
Yeah.
You know, they sit engrossed in a book, and they
Mm.
go off into some sort of fantasy as they're
Mm.
reading.
Yeah.
That's always got space in a library
Mm.
because the person can go to a library knowing that they're going to go there and be in another world for a small time.
Yeah.
The non-fiction, normally a person would go there
Mm.
and just for one particular fact, they want to find one particular bit of information
Yeah.
that they need, and they can do that quite quickly on Google.
Yeah. I'd
You
actually
know,
disagree with you. I
well,
prefer my hard facts books here, but um, yeah, I had been preparation for this.
the thing
Um,
is, Mark, as soon as it gets reprinted,
mm,
your book of hard facts is out of date. Is out of date, and
yeah.
well, yes, there's
Yeah.
no there's no ooh yet. Yes, it's out of date,
It just does. Yeah.
and that's why the internet is going to be current. It's always going to be current.
Mm, yeah. I'm always. I've actually seen facts on the internet which I know are not true, but there we go.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
there
yeah,
you are. But the thing is that you need to find a source. As ever, you need to find a source,
yeah,
and you know, it needs to be from a source that you can confide in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, trust. Yeah, I mean, okay. So it's always the free sources and everything. I mean, yeah, maybe a mathematical formula. I might still look online sometimes if I need it.
Yeah.
Um, I just enjoy reading. I can take these books and have them on my hammock and read a book on my hammock here on my balcony with with my coffee or Coca-Cola next to me, as it were. Um, yeah, yeah, I do think there's still room for physical places to have, well, physical places like museums. My personal feeling is museums, maybe libraries, the dynamics of a library are changing. Um, I think museums have to be more creative now, which they've always been. The way they're laid out, they give information. I mean, I mentioned the British Museum, which is probably one of the best museums in the world still. Okay, we can argue how they've got a lot of their artifacts, but we can argue that about the French as well and other places and Germans. But it is a place that did encourage, has inspired people to, if you like, follow careers, to learn more, or even learn more in their spare time, an understanding of the world. Um, I do also see museums as a place does preserve artifacts in history. I know people say taking things from the Middle East. We've seen recent video, ironically, people recording on 21st century technology, technology from the 6th century BC being destroyed because it didn't fit their modern narrative.
Mhm.
Um, so I think, yeah, the Western museums have saved a lot as well,
Yep.
where we can still go and enjoy these things, look at them. We're practical. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I think the relevance is still there personally, and I think we're both agreed on that. Possibly our definition ideas of libraries might be a little bit different,